I first got into PC building around the year of 2016, which, in hindsight, was a golden era of modern PC building, crypto boom notwithstanding. My first GPU, a GTX 750 Ti, hastily shoved into an old Dell Optiplex, installed a thirst for PC gaming, which only grew from there. During this time, both AMD and Nvidia were releasing amazing cards at an excellent value, and GPUs that would become legends. The GTX 1080 Ti, Vega 56, the GTX 1050 Ti, all absolutely amazing. But two cards really pushed the value envelope and touched the hearts of thousands of mainstream and budget conscious gamers. And here we have one. One of the twin GPUs of mainstream royalty, the RX 480 8GB. Leading the charge and bringing GCN4 to the market, the 480 is a bit of an oddball. A mid-range card, released under a nomenclature that would normally have this as a flagship, and a rather large VRAM buffer. With the passage of time and prices on new cards skyrocketing, how well has this value champion aged? GCN4 debuted on the Polaris RX 400 series of GPUs in June of 2016. With the flagship RX 480 squarely a mid-tier card with just 36 CUs, Polaris represented a big shift in AMD's GPU strategy as they set out to the mainstream market first, deferring the launch of high-end GPUs, leaving a huge amount of hope stapled to Vega. This speaks volumes of the extent of GCN's success, or lack thereof, in the high-end space, but we'll scuttle that discussion for a while, instead maintaining focus on new features GCN4 brought. Being part of the GCN4 generation, the RX 480 has a few party tricks up its sleeves compared to the older Fury counterparts. Views can be found by clicking the card in the corner. GCN4 brought support for instruction prefetching, a predictive process wherein processors guess the instructions they'll be executing next based on the current execution state and then fetch those instructions, something resembling Prince prediction on modern multi-threaded CPUs. Along with this, AMD added the primitive discard accelerator. As surfaces and complex shapes are tessellated, or made into smaller and simpler polygons, typically triangles, the primitive discard accelerator culls visually insignificant triangles for increased performance by cutting the amount of actual rendering time spent by the card. Combined with a smaller manufacturing node than previous generations of GCN, and a focus on optimization for efficiency, GCN4 shows itself as a much more modern core than older AMD cards, which leads me to ask, how well does it actually perform? Sporting the Polaris 10 XT chip, the RX 480 comes with 2,304 stream processors, 1,444 TMUs, 32 ROPs, and stock clocks of 1,120 MHz that boosted to 1266 MHz. It also came with either 4 or 8 GB of GDDR5 instead of the exotic HBM AMD introduced in their previous generation, the Fury cards. This normal memory rides on a 256-bit bus, giving bandwidth figures of 256 GB a second. All this places the 480 as a solid mid-range card, which partially explains the 6-pin power connector. However, that connector is a bit of a red herring, since someone seeing that might assume this card is on the same level of efficiency as the GTX 1060, which is not the case. This card is, unfortunately, well known to break the PCIe spec and pull way too much power over the PCIe slot, which can have nasty side effects on anything riding on that power rail, like onboard audio. This is something AMD rectified with future Polaris cards, like the 580, and partner models may have fixed it, but I don't have any to test. If you do, feel free to leave a comment about your results. I'd be interested in seeing. The Passmark suite is first up on the list today, which tests 2D, 3D, and compute capabilities. In the 2D test, which works to stress menus, resizing, scalable effective graphics, and more, The Polaris card scores 1002 points, placing it firmly in the middle of the pack, outpacing the higher-end Vega cards finally. The 3D test, which tests DX 9 through 12 capabilities, has the 480 making 8,662 points, slightly behind the Fury Nano and the other Fury cards. The compute scores 2,859, which puts it second to last out of all the cards tested so far, only outpacing the MXRT 6700, another GCN4 card. Next up, for Mark II to test cooling, power delivery, and clock stability with 1080p, 1440p, and 4K flavors. Once again, the RX 480 scores poorly here, only outperforming the MXRT 6700, falling behind the older Fury cards by large margins. Now, to be fair, those cards were far more expensive at the time, so it's not totally fair to compare, but those are, realistically, the competitors in performance so far, since the twice successor to the 480, the RX 590, thoroughly outclasses this GPU. The 3D Mark Duo are up, with Firestrike Extreme showcasing DX11 performance and Time Spy revealing DX12 performance. In Firestrike, the RX 480 gives us a score of 5,443, far ahead of the medical card, but also way behind the other cards in the list. Time Spy isn't much different, with 3,788 putting us around half the performance of the Vega Frontier Edition for a comparison. Finally, we ended off with the synthetics with superposition in 1080p and 4K variants. In the 1080p Extreme test, we got a score of 2096, again around half the performance of the Vega FE, and slightly behind all three Fury cards. The 4K optimized numbers are honestly no better, because even with that 8GB of VRAM compared to the 4GB of the Fury cards, this mid-range Polaris card just can't keep up. Maybe in gaming will give this card a leg up over its older predecessors. Starting off with the custom Dolphin benchmark, where we push a Wii game at 4K with 8x SSAA to really stretch the graphic card in a realistic way, with the RX 480 scoring just over 21 FPS, we have the 480 near the back of the pack, but somehow outperform the 590 by a decent margin. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart comes in next, representing our DX12 Ultimate title, with plenty of hair, lighting, and more to push all different parts of a GPU. At 1080p high, the 480 reaches 26.1 on average, just missing out on a stable 30 FPS experience. 4040p high has the 480 no longer surpassing 20, giving an unplayable experience. 4K high is completely out of the question, with the RX card only barely passing 10 on average. This is a 1080p medium card in this game, no doubt about it. Slime Rancher 2 is another DX12 game, but with few of the ultimate features, and more of a focus on physics and explorative environments. At 1080p high, the 480 gets to 42.2 frames on average, placing pretty far behind the 590 and the older Fury cards. Certainly not unplayable, just not amazing by contrast. 1440p is already into rough territory, just missing out on 20 FPS averages, and the 4K numbers are a lost cause, falling far behind playable numbers. Again, definitely a 1080p medium on this one. Finally, to end things off, we have Overwatch, formerly 2, an esports team-based shooter. At 1080p Ultra, we see averages around 90 FPS, a decently high number, if not fully into high refresh rate territory. 1440p Ultra is next, with results that don't inspire much excitement, being unable to pass 60 FPS here. 4K is similarly weak, now no longer getting past 50 FPS. As with nearly all the games tested, the RX 480 is now, firmly, a 1080p medium card, and struggles when resolutions rise, even with the extra VRAM compared to the Fury cards. Our final category to test today is video editing, with the Puget Bench suite for DaVinci Resolve being our main source of results. Encoding performance has the 480 nearly matched to the RX 590, with it falling ever so slightly behind in processing, where the cores are stressed more so than the video encoders and decoders. It sticks just a bit ahead of the GTX 1066GB in the GPU effect scores, but still slightly behind its overclocked successor, the 590. The AI test has the RX 480 behind both the 1060 and 590, and slightly ahead in the fusion scores. In the real-world YouTube render, the 480 scores 10.59 FPS, very slightly ahead of the 1060, slightly behind the 590, and absolutely crushed by the RTX 3060 12GB as a modern mid-range comparison to see how far tech has moved. The RX 480 then. An excellent mid-range card in its day, this now old card still has some chops when it comes to modern gaming, but it's clearly been left behind by newer technologies and cards, including its own refreshes. While reasonably performant, able to play everything thrown at it, it's no more than an entry-level GPU in today's world, a 1080p low-medium option, placed at the bottom of the stack. But that's not a bad thing. This card fills a role that something else, like the R9 Fury, cannot. Being a reasonable choice. While the air-cooled Fury soundly beats this card in a lot of ways, the old flagship needs much more power, space in a case, and custom driver support to really compete, all while costing more on the used market. By contrast, this little mid-range card seems much more reasonable, needing little from the end user to get a decent experience from, with good undervolting awaiting those who want to take things a little further, all while being cheap. This card only costed me $60 with shipping and tax, making it quite the bargain, with very few cards worth their salt coming anywhere close to that price point, letting the RX 480 carve a new niche in the used market as an ultra-cheap, entry-level GPU to get you started. Yes, it's been thoroughly outmoded, but for the price, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything better. And that's the real story of Polaris, the value kings. This has been Tech-Xample, thank you for watching, I'll see you in the next one.